Welcome to PRORAW, and this is PRORAW in the Raw, our video series.
Thank you for having me.
Well, the plan here is to introduce you as a new addition to PRORAW's rehab team and, I suppose, exercise team.
Correct.
Tell us a little bit about your own profession, your degrees.
Yeah, so I'm an accredited exercise sports science scientist, and I'm currently doing my master's in sports science.
Yep.
But as you remember, I actually started many years ago as a patient of yours. I got discharged from the Australian Army for a back injury that I had, and basically I was told like I could claim benefits as a medically disabled person, and that just didn't sit very well with me and pretty much any other professional I went to. The only advice I got, just stop lifting heavy, do a lot of stretches, and that'll be for the rest of your life. And luckily, I came across you, and you're the first person actually telling me that there's no evidence to show that I could not have PBS until in my 50s, and that was the first time someone actually said exactly opposite the advice that I was given by pretty much every other professional that I've seen.
It's amazing, isn't it? Yeah, the medical model tends to tell people that you're disabled, and thanks for coming. But realistically, there you were, you're a normal person who just suffered a normal injury that we experienced.
Absolutely, and it was just a repetitive loaded movement that I didn't know how to move well, and seeing you and getting better at it, and within I think a year and a half I ended up doing like a powerlifting comp where I came third in my weight class, which is a 90 kilo class, a very competitive class. To me, I just couldn't believe the fact that from absolutely not being able to get out of bed with drive or any other movement to I was actually lifting a decent amount of weight and competing.
So the interesting thing is that we're looking at the fact that here we are, we truly have an example of the gift of injury.
Absolutely.
You look at it and say, here you are, you're out of the army, and that was a career plan, and they're telling you that you can't move and that you might as well get used to being disabled.
Yeah.
And yet you've turned that around to become an accredited exercise scientist. You're still powerlifting now, you're looking at seeing better numbers all the time.
Yep.
You're stronger than you've ever been. And it all comes from science. And it's the science that you investigated yourself now as a result of our work.
Absolutely, and pretty much since I met you, and it almost started as a journey. We might want to go back and just, I always like to introduce myself in the quote that I learned from the Army.
Yep.
That was in my recruitment at the Kapuga. It was a great speech by one of the warrant officers, and he finished the speech by saying, in your life, whatever you guys do, don't have a soft, boring, mediocre life. Have a great life, even if it's a very short life. And to me, that was the best advice I was given in the military. And that's something that you represented, which is greatness. You want to leave average behind. We can't be mediocre and average and soft. We have to be better than what we are now, and always strive for that greatness.
And you've certainly taken that on academically now too.
Absolutely. So that's what got me into moving into start becoming a personal trainer, strength and conditioning coach, and moving on to my exercise science degree, and now doing my master's in sports science.
Yeah, and working even with some of the AFL work and even the Boomers.
Yeah.
You're getting some really interesting experience and interesting exposure into not just powerlifting, but you're experiencing athletes who run, who jump, and perform at a very high level.
Absolutely. So the background, other than here at the PRORAW, my other roles are the strength and rehabilitation coach for the AFL Victorian Umpires. That's about 140 umpires that I look after.
Yep.
Also the strength conditioning coach with the WNBL, the women's Melbourne Boomer team. Again, two very different types of sport, different demands, but at the end of the day, what you just mentioned before, the science of movement, we apply the science of movement irrespective of what the demand of the sports is. The underlying principle of biomechanics, the motor learning, and the physiology or anatomy, it all applies to the same. It's not that we have a different hip and different shoulder when we do our housework and we leave it at home and we put another shoulder, another pair of hips when we go lift or we play basketball. The human structure and the function of the movement is all the same. We have to apply the movement science, we have to apply the principles of biomechanics and understand the demand of the sport and apply that. Yeah.
Very much a McGill style approach where your active daily movement patterns are still athletic.
Absolutely.
Whether you're picking up the kids' toys, or whether you're washing the car, whether you're vacuuming, or whether you're performing a maximum lift. These human patterns are basically ingrained in us, and we should know how to use them.
Absolutely, and that's what we do as part of the rehab team that we're here with you, is we look at developing proficient and efficient movement. We correct any kind of movement dysfunction. Generally, almost every injuries that we come across, they always come from some kind of movement dysfunction. And initially, your role is to diagnose that movement and understand where the breakdown is happening, and we can start building some tolerance to the quality of the movement. Then you kind of pass it on to me, and we start looking at the capacity of the knee. So if it means they're in various and they have to bend down and pick up equipment, or if it means it's a basketball player or it's a powerlifter, whatever the demand is, my job is to look at the capacity, how we can create that bridge from that initial diagnosis into return to sport or return to life.
Yes, it's very important. Realistically, that's a lot of what I do is I analyse to find out where the dysfunction is, and then that's my job done pretty well, and I handball onto you because you assess the tolerances, the loads, basically what the person's functional requirements are, and that's what as a coach you do, and I'm not a coach.
Absolutely.
I'm a movement disorder specialist, really.
That's it. I think, and you bring up a very interesting point, Andrew, which is professionals knowing what their lane is, staying within our lane. I'm not a physiotherapist, and my job is not to do that initial analysis. That's what you do really well, and that's where your role comes in, and you pass that role on to me after return to sport. So I see myself as a bridge between that initial analysis to handing the athlete or the person over to the coach or whatever the activity they're going to. For example, my job is not to train somebody to be a better basketball player. My role is to give them the physical abilities that they need so they can be the best basketball player they already are, but they can just execute it a little bit better. So they have a little bit more buffering in their movement system. So whenever they're going for those extreme demands of their sport, they're working with their coaches and be proficient at it.
So you've got your coaches who work on the skill set.
Yes.
You're working as an exercise professional on their capacity to perform the required demands, and my job is to figure out what went wrong to get there.
Absolutely, and we all stay in our lanes and we know exactly where it starts and where it happens. Sometimes there are some crossovers because we always operate within a bandwidth of the left and the right arc. In some points I do need to do some basic diagnosis or some basic analysis of the movements. But if it's a case of a clinical understanding, then obviously that's your role and that's not my role. Again, the coaching is my role and that's not your role, and we do that very well. Where you do the initial analysis, I take over, but at the end of the day, we always apply exactly the same principle, which is understanding biomechanics, understanding the laws of motor learning, and physiology and anatomy.
It's really universal. The solid sciences are really what guide us, and as we've seen, research can be incredibly poorly performed.
Absolutely.
And people who don't know where the flaws in research are going to quote research and say, but the research says. And I've always said that if the research clashes with the solid sciences, then it's the research that's wrong, it's not the science. It's not physics and anatomy. Sir Isaac Newton wasn't wrong, Vesalius wasn't wrong, Borelli wasn't wrong. 400 years of science underpins basically what we do today. Yet there's a lot of academics now who are seemingly devoid of understanding where the underpinnings of our science come from. And they tend to quote research that is just so poorly performed and misapplied.
Exactly. So, again, a very interesting point about research. So with research, we always need to understand every single research is valid within the proximity of a probability. What it means for a very specific group under a very specific design, given the knowledge of that person executing or conducting the research, that is true to a point. What is absolute is the laws of physics. Newton's third law will never change. Whether it's an apple or a human being, it'll always be 9.8 meters per second. We cannot change the laws of motor learning. So the Higgs law, Fitts law, all these laws, they are absolute. We cannot change them irrespective of how we apply it. The laws of biomechanics, the laws of physics and motor learning and anatomy, they are always constant. So if you go back to a study and look at the proximity of probability, if the study cannot pass the test of basic physics and biomechanics and the laws of motor learning, then probably that's not a very valid and reliable test. Meaning, it does not measure what it's supposed to measure. And if somebody else replicated this research, they might not find the exact same finding.
And we tend to find this in, I suppose, a lot of popular articles, which I think there's some very smart people who cherry pick their work to try and support an argument. We often see that with some of the glute arguments about activation now. And what's not being said quite clearly is there's no tool that you use on every single person.
Exactly.
and it's only the right tool at the right time on the right person. So yes, glute activations are the correct thing for the correct person with the correct dysfunction and the correct tolerance and a need for endurance.
Yeah. If somebody doesn't know how to do a squat correctly and he did 10 squat studies, every single one of them will tell you that squat is bad for your knees.
How many studies we find on major exercises such as squats and deadlifts, and the parameters are not even defined within the study. It doesn't say how they've basically set up objectively what their deadlift style is.
Yeah.
What are they looking for? As a result, you'll find a lot of conflicting research.
Exactly.
So standardisation of exercise is one of the problems that we have in research. So that's one of the beauties of our minds being here is, of course, we're very mindful of whether studies are applicable when people talk about research, but we apply basic sciences to what we do here at PRORAW. So we're looking at basically being part of this recovery, restoration, function, I suppose, process that is part of our role here at PRORAW. That's why it's really great to have you here, because this is another adjunct to basically PRORAW, is having someone who can fill the exercise science capacity here. And that's one of the things I always liked about your work is everything's lateral thinking, everything moves, you see subtleties, you make changes, you demand the best of your clients, and their responses are always wonderful. Their application and their compliance is always good.
Exactly. And the last thing we need to touch on what a strength and conditioning or just a gym should look like. So PRORAW Gym, this is basically a dream place for any exercise and a sports scientist. Any exercise scientist or a sports scientist out there, they need to come down here and spend a day, have a look at exactly how a gym or a strength gym should be laid out.
Yeah.
Everything has its place, every equipment has its purpose, and it's laid out with a purpose. And you can see, action shows the person's passion. And you can see him as passion through the action that he's putting into building this gym.
Yes, absolutely.
Him and his crew. It's a quality performance center. It's not just a gym. It's a performance training facility.
It is.
And a recovery center.
That's what we love being here. As a performance center, it's healthy to work for us here. It's great professionally to think here.
Absolutely.
And we get some really great clientele who gets some of the best. And it's just awesome. So thanks for coming in today. And it's great to have you working here at PRORAW. Looking forward to some huge year ahead, because I think there's so much coming up.
It's going to be exciting times ahead in this PRORAW Gym, Andrew. Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. Enjoy the next session of PRORAW in the Raw. We'll be doing some brilliant interviews with some eminent individuals like MD and many others.
Thank you, Andrew.